So I've come to the realization that my summer TBR has gotten a bit out of hand. I meant to do a next month TBR, so a July TBR, and then I decided I would just do my TBR for the summer as a whole because I'm participating in a couple challenges, a book club, and there was just so much that spanned into August, which although for me, it is the season summer, but I'm back teaching. Although for me, that's not summer in my head anymore unless we're talking about the season. I might as well just include it and do an all-encompassing summer. So the rest of June, all of July, all of August, TBR, because there is a fat sack in front of me. So I figured I would just talk a little bit about each one, why I'm reading it, why it's on my list. I'm not sure if I talked about it in my first video, but I've been using my handy dandy TBR bowl. It's not a jar, it's a bowl. This guy right here, which has the title of every single novel that I own other than my nonfiction books, just because when I read nonfiction, I have to be in the mood for it or it will send me into a slump. And she is still overflowing. This is a bowl I made my grandmother when I was little. When she passed away, I got it back, so now it holds the name of every single novel that I own that I need to read. Obviously, it is a lot, but having always had a large book collection and then not having the time to read and finally getting myself back into reading in the last year and a half, there's going to be a lot there, which then poses the question of why am I doing so many rereads? The reason for that is that I'm going to be teaching at a new school next year, and I have novels now that I am required to teach. Not I can teach whatever I want as long as it aligns thematically with the unit. I am required to teach specific novels, and some of these I have not read since I was in high school myself, so I need to reread them. And I also find that anytime I reread a novel, it allows me to get inspiration for how I would teach that novel myself. And I also apologize for any banging in the background. I have my laundry going right now, and I cannot be bothered to stop it or wait to do it until after I finish this video, just because I know that I'm sitting doing this right now, so by the time that I'm done, it'll be done and ready for me to flip over, and I don't have to worry one bit about it. So I apologize about the audio in the background. So the first book on my summer TBR, so June, July, August, is Fight Club. This is actually, I thrifted this for my dad because this is his favorite author, and then I watched the film for the first time about a month ago with my boyfriend, and I remembered it was a novel that my dad loves, and I had literally bought him a copy, so I texted him and I said, hey, next time I visit you guys, can I borrow this? And he said yes. I finally remembered after my 5th visit back to see my parents to pick this up, so this is definitely on my list. It's pretty short. For reasons you will know if you've read or if you've seen the movie, I will not talk much about this one, but this is something that I'm very excited to get into. The next one on my TBR is one that I feel like everyone but myself has read. When I was in school, everyone in this specific English 2 class read this book, other than my class, because we had a different teacher who preferred to teach us through short stories rather than do specific novel studies, which is actually, he was great. I loved him, but his class is one of the reasons why I am so passionate about doing novel studies and not just short stories, because I find that, yes, I read some phenomenal short stories, and I really honed in on my argumentative writing and all of that in that specific English class because I had so many different shorter texts to choose from, but I missed out on some great literature that now I feel like reading at my age. I'm the oldest person reading this book, and that is Lord of the Flies by William Golding. I could not tell you a single thing about this book either. It is a classic, so it seems pretty short, and I've seen quotes from it. I've seen so many videos like on Instagram Reels or TikTok, when I had TikTok, all of those things about this book. So I'm really excited to finally get myself to read it, so that I know what everyone is talking about. Because like I'm reading the back and I'm like, this seems like something I would thoroughly enjoy. I believe it's dystopian. I could be wrong. I'm okay with being wrong. I'm very excited to finally read Lord of the Flies and understand what all the hype is about. The next one is a novel that is on the required readings list for the students I will be teaching next year, and it's one that I've never read. I've heard about it. Shout out to my friend Corey for buying this off of my teacher wish list, and that is One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest by Ken Kesey. I know nothing about this one. Like Lord of the Flies, I could say I had a memory associated with this one. All I know is that I have seen this title my whole life. Something Cuckoo's Nest. Like, my entire life I've seen something from the title. I know nothing about the actual book. The only thing I know is that Corey said he had to read this in high school and he loved it. So that's the extent that I know, and I also know that I'm going to be teaching this sometime within the next year, so I have to read it, connect it to the themes and everything else that I'm required to do, and then also reread it with my groups of kids. So it's a classic novel of the 1960s. Randall Patrick McMurphy. Okay, that's a name. Boisterous, brawling, fun-loving rebel who swaggers into the world of a mental hospital and takes over. Ooh. This seems incredibly intriguing after reading the back of this. The wheels are already turning, so here's that one. The next two are plays that I have read, so it's very obvious you can say, like, yeah, I'm going to be teaching them sometime next year. I believe it'll be later into the year, but doesn't hurt to reread them now, and that is the classic Romeo and Juliet. Okay, let's all applaud. We all knew that this one was coming. I've known ever since I said I wanted to teach English, I would be teaching Romeo and Juliet. It is a classic. I've read it twice now. I read it, obviously, when I was in school, and then another time I read it on my own, my first year or second year early on of college, just because I saw it and I was like, it's short, I'll read it. This is a classic love story, tragedy. I say love story, then I'm like, well, no, it's tragic, and being an adult, I can say, you know, like, I don't think that's a love story, like, as much as they love you. Like, there's just so many arguments. There's so many arguments. I remember when I was reading this and studying it, I got into arguments with people where I was like, no. So I think rereading this will be really fun, and I'll be able to come up with some interesting questions and maybe arguments to present my own students with, where I'm like, okay, do you think they actually were in love or what? I don't know. And then the next play is Arthur Miller's The Crucible. I actually forgot that this was a play and not a short story, because this is something that I also had to read while I was in school, and I read it at the same time as Metamorphosis and The Scarlet Letter. So they all kind of jumbled in my mind a little bit when I was thinking about it, and I love Scarlet Letter, but that's not one I'll be teaching. I remember I loved this, and then another vivid memory is that my freshman year English teacher, whose courses I took all throughout high school, he did not teach the class that I read this in, but he was an avid hater of The Crucible, and I remember being like, okay, you hate it so much, but what's your argument? Because I loved it. I loved everything I read in that class. So like, we read Jane Eyre in that class, and it was the best. Like, I don't think there was any novel in that class that I did not absolutely adore. So I'm really excited to reread this play, and I need to remember to call them plays. They're not novels, they're plays. This copy was gifted to me by my aunt off my teacher's wish list, so thank you to my aunt. My next one is another classic, and I'm reading it for a couple of reasons. Mostly because R.F. Kuang's Catabasis, I'm probably pronouncing it wrong. is coming out in August, and a lot of the ARC readers are saying, like, you can read it and know nothing about Greek mythology, Greek and Roman history, but if you have read these novels, it's going to just enhance your reading experience, and that is Homer's The Odyssey. I have never read this before. I read parts of the beginning this previous school year when I was teaching about ancient Greece and ancient Rome, because I did mention Homer when we were talking about the achievements. I remember while my parents were in school when I was growing up, one of them had to read this for class, I believe. I think otherwise they just bought 2 copies and we had it, and I remember just seeing this and thinking it was such a mammoth and really wanting to read it and understand. And I knew nothing about what it was about at the time. All I know is that I saw it out all the time and I really wanted to read it. The first few, I'm not sure how much I have read. It wasn't a lot, but it was really, really interesting to read. And it was fun to read a little bit of, because my kiddos this year, or this previous year, loved learning about the Trojan War, and did it actually happen? Was it real? Why did the Odyssey come out of this? Why did the Iliad come out of this? Why did all of these stories come out of this, essentially? And it was really fun kind of integrating that with them. So I am excited to actually finally read the entirety of Homer's The Odyssey, and I might make a video while I'm reading it, because it is, you know, I say it's a mammoth, but then the whole front, I believe, is a very, very long introduction that essentially tells you everything that happens. And for me, I wanted to kind of read it prior to reading the introduction, and then going back and doing all that, doing it wrong perhaps, but that was kind of my idea. My next one, I fear I am going to get hate comments for not liking, and I am going to give it another chance because I am required to teach it, and that is why I'm going to force myself to like this, or just see if perhaps when I read it I just was not in a good mind space and did not want to read this. And that is J.D. Salinger's The Catcher in the Rye. I can feel myself tensing because I'm oh, I'm going to make so many people mad. But I am rereading this. I am required to teach it. I did not like it the first time I read it. I think I gave it 1 star. But I have learned that me as a reader, if I do not enjoy the protagonist or the main character of the story, if I do not like them, it is very hard for me to enjoy a novel, which is going to be another one of my rereads for my book group coming up. I struggled with Catcher in the Rye, but I bought myself a copy yesterday because this is a novel I'm required to teach. So I'm going to make myself reread it, and even if I don't like it, I think that that would be a good experience for my own kiddos. I'm not going to say, I didn't like this book, and start off and be like, I hate this, I don't want to be doing this. But more so opening up, and perhaps opening up my own eyes too, to knowing that, not every kid is going to like every book, and it's not on me, because I was supposed to read this in high school. I didn't read it. That was actually the only time I ever BS an essay in high school, was with this one. I don't remember why. I think I just was so burnt out. I was a senior, so I just was I'm not reading another novel. I've done it. I'm done. And then I read it in college, my second year of college, just because I saw it was short. It was a classic, and I was I need to get this done. I need to have read this because I'm probably going to have to teach it one day. Didn't like it, but I'm going to reread it, give it another chance, maybe being older, having more experience, looking at it from a less critical eye, maybe I'll enjoy it more. My next 2, it's more so which one, and I'm leaning towards another one, are for next month's Jane Austen July. So either Pride and Prejudice, which I'm pretty sure it's going to be Pride and Prejudice because I love the 2005 film, or Persuasion. Self-explanatory, Jane Austen July. There's a full challenge. I will link the video in my description that someone is setting up. And I'm really only going to follow the first prompt, which was to read one of Jane Austen's main 6 novels. There's a full challenge. in there for all of July, and it's reading a lot of Jane Austen. But when I look at my TBR for the next 2.5-ish months, I know that I don't have the room to fit in more than one work of Jane Austen's, as much as I would love to, with everything else that I'm reading and also supposed to read, so that I can be my best self and show up for my students. So probably Pride and Prejudice, considering the fact that I've held it up and I'm looking at this and there's a big smile on my face because this is one I want to finish the most. But Persuasion I will try to get to as well. This one does seem a lot shorter too, but we will see. My next one is a reread for a novel that I will be teaching, and I love this one. I have vivid memories of both times that I read it, and they were not, well, one was for school, but I think that I didn't reread the whole thing, and that is Harper Lee's To Kill a Mockingbird. I love To Kill a Mockingbird. My story for when I read it for the first time is very much a shocker, especially for me, and that is that I got in school suspension in 7th grade. I had nothing to do. It was for 3 days, and all I had was a copy of To Kill a Mockingbird, and I sat down and I just read the entire thing, and I loved it. And I'm hoping that after I read this, annotate it, get all my ideas, whatever, I will be able to watch the film version of it, because I heard that that one is very good as well. So my next few books are books from the library that I am on a time crunch for. The first one being The Best American Science Fiction and Fantasy of 2016. Now, I'm not going to force myself to read the entire thing, but more so pick out some short stories from this, because the novel idea that I have in my head is a fantasy sci-fi novel, and I thought, you know, I need to be reading more science fiction, so why not start with some of the best science fiction from 2016? And there's no real story behind why it's 2016 other than this is the only one my library had. I did really want the one that R.F. Kuang was the editor for, but they only have the digital version, and even that one is, I think they don't have the rights to it anymore, or it's just not available. So I picked up the one that I saw in person, which is this. I'm going to select a couple stories and read them and go from there. My next one is one that I walked in the library, picked up my hold, and decided I was going to browse for a little bit longer, and then I saw that one, and it made me laugh out loud, because I was like, what is this? I have to get it, and that is Jen Bregman's The Last Hamilton. And the reason it made me laugh is because I'm a huge fan of the musical Hamilton, and I saw it right on display staring at me, and I was like, okay, I don't care if this is something that I would never pick up in a million years. It's staring at me. I have to get it. And I read the first page, as you do, and one of the sentences just made me laugh so hard that I was like, whatever, I'm going to check this out. I'm going to pick it up. I'm going to read it. I'm going to have a good time. Like, this isn't going to make me think. It's more so a palate cleanser. And it's a mystery novel about the last heir of Alexander Hamilton being murdered. And then they're trying to figure out something. I'm very awful at explaining novels that I have not read before, because I'm not someone who will read the back of a book. I'm really someone who takes recommendations, or is just based on whatever I like. Yes, so it was the last sentence of the first paragraph of the prologue, which is, white and imposing, the colonnades rise in silent homage to the home's creator, Alexander Hamilton, a man of destiny who helped save a nation, but who, in the end, could not save himself. And for me, that just made me laugh, because it's, you know, we're talking about a real person here, right? But as someone who loves the musical, I saw it 3 times last summer. Like, it was a whole thing. Just that sentence made me laugh, because I just was like, yeah, and you know, I'm not someone who's very privy to American history. I much prefer the more ancient stuff. But Hamilton has a special place in my heart. The Hamilton, all of that stuff. Because of the musical, I will say that when I was studying U.S. history and in all my U.S. history courses that I took in college. Like, I just was waiting for the name Thomas Jefferson to pop up so I could be like, hey, I know that guy, like, from the musical. Like, I think one time Aaron Burr got mentioned and I was like, I know him. And it's like, okay, well, like, we all know the musical Hamilton is not the most historically accurate thing either, which is a whole other thing I could go on, like how the Schuyler sisters did have an older brother, and that Aaron Burr never actually showed that he regretted shooting Hamilton. So, like, I could just go on. So I really just picked this one up because I was like, funny palate cleanser. And I was talking to my boyfriend the other day because I haven't been reading as much as I would like to. I fell into a slump after finishing my last book, which was The Bluest Eye by Toni Morrison, which was phenomenal, but it's very, very heavy. So it's been weighing on, it weighed a lot on me. And he said I needed something fun. And I went, oh, I'll just read another fantasy, or I'll reread The Hunger Games. And he was like, no, you need something fun because kids die in that book. And I truly think this might actually be my palate cleanser that I need. It looks like it'll be a quick read for me. So we'll see. Maybe this will pop up in my monthly wrap up for June. My next one is The Unworthy. So this one I crashed out about. It is from the library as well. And that's as much as I know. I know it's by a well-renowned author of horror, whose other novels I have not read, but that I own. And this one I was like, I'm not going to buy it before reading it because I need to save money and need to support my library. The reason I crashed out over this one is my public library, when you have a book on hold, it will tell you like where your copy is, and then when it's due if someone else has it checked out. Well, the person who had checked out this one before me, it was due on May 27th. Well, lo and behold, it was June 10th, and I was checking, and they still had it checked out. They hadn't returned it, hadn't renewed it, because my library will also auto-renew for you, but if it's on hold, you have to return it. You cannot renew a book if someone else has it on hold, and because this was a new release, you couldn't. And I kid you not, I complained about it every single day, and I still have not started it, and it is quite short. I still haven't started it, which I'm just like, okay, well, there was no reason for me to be freaking out that this person didn't return their book on time for almost 2 weeks. If I didn't start it, but I'm hoping to get through this one too. It seems very short. It looks like something that I will thoroughly enjoy, and it might help me get myself acclimated to the horror genre a bit more than I am, because I don't read much horror. Speaking of, my next novel is another highly anticipated new release that I got from the library that I have not yet read, and that is Ling Ling Huang's Immaculate Conception. I read Natural Beauty by her in April for a local book club, and I loved it. When I saw this was coming out, I was the first name on that holds list, and I have not read it. I've gotten, how many pages? 14 pages in. With my Ryan Gosling bookmark that I forgot I had. And I really like it so far, but there's really not much that I've been introduced yet. And this one is a bit longer, and I think that what's keeping me from starting it and really getting invested in it is because I have such high expectations. And I found that it is really difficult for me to start a novel when I have super high expectations and I'm super excited for it to come out, because then it's like, oh, but what if it's not as good as I want it to be? And what if it isn't as good as I want it to be? But I really loved her first novel, so I think that I will really like this one as well. I just need to get myself to finish it. My last 4 are all part of a series, and I think we're all seeing this coming. So the official Hunger Games books account, like through Scholastic, they every summer now, I think this is the 3rd summer in a row they're doing it, have hosted a Hunger Games reread book club. Currently, we are in the last few days of the last week of rereading the first novel, The Hunger Games, but throughout the rest of the summer, so all of July and then most of August, will be rereading the entire series. Now, I already reread the entire series plus Sunrise on the Reaping on the day it came out this year. So there's no reason for me to be doing this other than for fun. And I did want to reread Sunrise on the Reaping because, as I said, I did read it in one sitting on release day, and now they're coming out with the cast, and I'm seeing a lot of commentary on it, and there's some stuff that I'm just like, oh, I forgot about this. So I find that it's only fair that I participate in this reread. So I'm currently finishing the first novel, but starting on June 30th for 2 weeks, we will be reading Catching Fire, and I'm reading the brand new softback deluxe covers. I have a Hunger Games collection, which I may make a video about one day, of a lot of different alternate covers of books in the series, but I wanted to reread with this one because I did, when I reread it early in this year, I got other copies and I annotated them while I was reading them to kind of track my thoughts. But for the next one will be Catching Fire. And then obviously once I've finished my reread of Catching Fire, it will be Mockingjay, which is the conclusion of the original trilogy. But this reread spans the entire Hunger Games series, so not just the original trilogy. So I believe this starts on July 14th. I could be wrong. It's that Monday, 2 weeks after June 30th, because you have 2 full weeks to read each book. So I believe that would be July 14th. Yes, it is July 14th. I will be starting this one and reading it. And then on July 28th starts the reread of the prequels, which starts off with The Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes, which brings me back to when I was talking about The Catcher in the Rye and how I struggle with main characters I dislike. I struggle with Songbirds of Snakes, the Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes. I struggled the first time. I loved it. Obviously, I was dying for a new Hunger Games novel, so it was everything to me. But this is the only one that I have given 4 stars, and I'm actually wondering if maybe after I finish this one, if it'll be lower than that, given my 3rd reread of this one. Just because I despise Coriolanus Snow, and, you know, I have many issues with him just for the dastardly things he has done, especially after reading the newest novel. But it is very hard being in this guy's head for, what is it, like almost over 500 pages. It's just not very enjoyable for me because he is not a character I like. I do not think that this redeemed him in any way or excused any of his actions in the original series or the other novels in any way. I think it actually made him 10 times worse. I have so many comments on Coriolanus Snow. I could make a whole video about it because I hate this guy so much. But then this one will be from July 28th to August 11th. And then on August 11th, for that final 2 weeks, we'll be rereading Sunrise on the Reaping, which I love this novel. I think that completing a series reread will help me adjust where I think this lands in the whole Hunger Games series, like my tier ranking of it. Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes is at the bottom, and I think Catching Fire is my favorite novel, but this is a close second, which makes sense because if you loved Catching Fire, these guys are very, very similar in the sense that a quarter quell happens in both of them. The events from this book are talked about in Catching Fire in a way. And I say in a way because if you've read this, you know what I'm talking about. And I think this one, I'll make a video about this once I've reread this one because I do think that I owe it to Miss Suzanne Collins. But I've seen a lot of arguments with this new one, with everyone saying, well, this is just fan service because it's about a character that a lot of people love. And it's a story that a lot of people have asked for since the publishing of the original trilogies. To keep it short, I entirely disagree. Miss Suzanne Collins herself has said that she will not write anything unless she has something to say. And the message, not just the message, there were many messages in this novel that she had about propaganda and even like the small things about AI and believing things. Like, I just think that this entire novel said a lot. With that, that concludes my hefty summer TBR. Whew, that's a lot. There was a lot that I discussed and that I hope to get done in the next 2.5 months, but a lot of them are pretty short novels, so I think that I will be fine. I can do it. So that concludes my summer TBR. I did want to mention before I end this video, I will be linking a Amazon Classroom wish list in the description of this video. Nothing is expected or anything like that, but because I did mention a novel that was gifted to me by a friend for my classroom and then another one that was gifted by a family member, and I'm going into teaching a new content, which is the one that I've studied for. I figured, and we're going into the end of the summertime for me, I just figured might as well put it out there. But with that, thank you everyone for watching. I'm excited to get into my end of the summer TBR, and I will see you next time.